Believe it or not, that what really matters in your life you can only recognize with the help of your heart. Let us listen to some examples given by Jörg Zink. You have only what you believe. This is meant exactly as it is stated. Everything that is really worth owning it, you have to believe. There is a saying which I often hear, especially from adults. They say it proudly and superciliously, and do not know how stupid it is. I only believe what I see. No one would pronounce it who has really thought about it. He would see that not only in the area of religion we have to do with faith, but that rather our whole life is based on that what we believe. A family in which everyone believes only what he sees is not a family, but hell. The father believes the mother that she uses the household money sensibly only if she proves this to him of every penny. That she works when she is alone at home. He believes her only when she has written down what she was doing every quarter of an hour. As the son lied to her once, the mother now considers each of his words a lie. That it is true what he says, she would have to believe him. No one believes that the daughter really goes to the evening course and not, perhaps, to a rendezvous. She must prove it by the signature of her teacher. That she has really swept under the cupboard is only admitted after the mother has moved the cupboard and checked. And if a man offers his wife flowers, what does that prove? That he loves her, or that he wants to calm his guilty conscience? If his wife does not believe his love, the flowers she sees do not help. And what a woman really thinks and feels, the man does not see. He thinks she loves him. It could, however, be that she is only good to him because she wants to be alimented. By believing each other, they belong together. There are no proofs of love. There is only trust in the love of the other and in his word. All life among people which deserves this name stands and falls by the fact that the participants are ready to believe each other a lot without being able to prove anything. In all important matters, you really have not what you see, but only what you believe. And how can a successful man realize that his life and work have a meaning? In his balance sheet, he sees only the success, but not the meaning. This he must believe. And if he cannot believe it, he is a poor man, in spite of all his profits. That he is not exposed to the horoscope or to chance, he must believe. He cannot prove it. That someone has given a meaning to his life and fate, this he must believe. You cannot be a human being if you want to believe only that what you see. Likewise, Helena Röhrig says, man does not realize that throughout his entire life he does the things he believes. Precisely that what one believes and how one believes it comprises the solution of the problems of being. All these and many more, indeed all, existential questions cannot be answered by the intellect or by the five outer senses, but only by the heart. You must rely upon the unknown and the unseen. Worst of all are those people who cannot trust and know not the power of trust. The intellect can gather facts. It can find reasons for all sorts of views, even the most absurd. But first, to weigh the innumerable quantity of more or less relevant reasons, and then to come to a decision. This only the heart can do. Without an education of the heart, without a reliable feeling for the things that are not visible and not touchable, without the ability to distinguish between good and bad, high and low, meaning and nonsense, pure and unclean, you will be completely disoriented and will walk one wrong track after the other. The reason prompts such people to gather detailed arguments, but the purpose of this conglomeration remains undisclosed, for the heart is silent. The reasoning mind must not be allowed into the domain where the heart should reign. Refinement of the heart does not depend upon intellectual education. In order to hearken to the voice of the heart, it is not necessary to be poor or rich, lofty or lowly. It is not even necessary to be very learned. The intellect may be wrong, but not the heart. Feeling will always prevail over reason. One has to accept this as a truth that cannot be suppressed. The brain makes mistakes, the heart never. Reason is the guide of misunderstanding. Rational thinking is being condemned, but irrational actions have also been condemned. This means that there is some force that should supplement the action of the reason. The heart must be the supreme judge. The wise man of the Middle Ages knew the intellect is not a suitable means of researching the truth. In this context, of course, by heart, we do not understand the organ of the physical body which regulates the blood circulation. We refer to one of the higher centers of man, which responds to finer vibrations than the 5 gross outer senses. The heart is the most important organ of your spiritual nature, your eternal individuality. Its location has been correctly ascertained at the place of the physical heart. In this spiritual sense, man has understood the heart since times immemorial. Thus Jesus said in the Sermon of the Mount, "Blessed are the pure in heart, for they shall see God." Even in the most ancient times, people understood the significance of the heart. They regarded the heart as the dwelling of God. But now, in our enlightened times, the heart has been reduced to nothing more than a physiological organ. The heart is the subtle organ which connects us to the higher world. Think of the heart as a mediating principle that connects you with the distant worlds. The flesh is crude, and only the heart beats in the name of the higher world. The heart is the inner sense which guides us infallibly along the right path. To approach the heart to life as the guiding principle is not simply repeating previous teachings. It rather brings about a true transfiguration of life. The heart is a guide. The heart is a prophet. The heart is a supermundane messenger. There are 2 main conditions for cognition by the heart: purity and refinement. Only a pure heart is able to recognize the highest. That means, above all, a heart unaffected by egotism. A heart that looks for knowledge in the interest of the common good and does not seek personal gain. And the insight that goes beyond our coarse outer senses is given to fine, sensitive people only. The conventional scientist, working purely intellectually, could actually be a coarse fellow and nevertheless win the Nobel Prize. In contrast, the new spiritual researcher must strive for the purification and refinement of his whole life and of his cognitive apparatus as well. That means of his body, his senses, and his heart. Otherwise, he will be unable to make progress. It is high time for scientists to realize that for subtle experiments, subtle conditions are needed. Each experiment requires a fiery spiritual purification. In fact, much may be achieved amidst nature and in temples, where the emanations are not so polluted. Higher knowledge comes from within yourself. Your essence intuitively captures the essence of other persons, things, and the circumstances around you. The higher this inner being, your essence, stands spiritually, that means the finer and the purer it is, the more it can perceive of the essence of others. A great message cannot penetrate a small ear. Pure hearts will perceive the highest. The low consciousness will see the low, but spiritual purification will make higher vision possible. Thus, the path to higher knowledge is actually self-perfection. Those who come to gain knowledge advance only through the transmutation of the ego. Thus, if you want to make use of your inner feeling, you must protect it from being distorted. It must not be feigned or simulated. There is no need to fall into self-deception and imagine what does not exist. It is necessary to replace fanciful drivel with sound reason. The cognizance of the supermundane requires utmost honesty. Above all, it must not be driven by selfishness. The more subtle the energy, the more indistinguishable to the crude vision will be its qualities. Thus, it is necessary, first of all, to establish firmly the basic quality, which is the touchstone. This quality is purity of thoughts, arising from the desire toward unselfish usefulness. In the new age, way of life and cognition can no longer be separated. The expansion of consciousness requires a transformation of our whole life. We actually have to live more purely and more subtly if we want to gain higher knowledge. No one will reflect that nothing clean comes out of dirt. Every coarseness of thinking, feeling, speaking, and acting must be overcome. The more subtly we express our higher self in daily life, the finer will our sensitivity become. People do not realize that one cannot undertake pure work with dirty hands. We again refer to the law of correspondence. The highest is only accessible to the one standing high. Only a sage can attain wisdom. The old, intellectually working scientist could actually live like a pig and yet produce remarkable results. One can be a learned scientist and still remain coarse. Clearly, formal education alone does not necessarily eradicate coarseness. A coarse nature cannot deal with subtle perceptions, and the science of the future will require genuine refinement, without which synthesis is impossible. The new divine science no longer allows this to happen. On the contrary, if the researcher does not lead a spiritual life, he will be unable to unearth any higher, any true knowledge. Intuition, visions do not come to a crude spirit. Someone wished to know about the highest worlds, but he lived like a pig. Undermining the roots is not consistent with upward striving. For pigs, the pigsty. A student cannot be heartless. The cruel scientist is far from truth, the obstinate one not worthy of knowledge, and the depressed one blind to the treasures of nature. Therefore, the way of life of the scientist of the future must meet the highest ethical standards. Without the shield of faith, the gospel of peace, the breastplate of righteousness, and the sword of the Spirit, no man, angel, or demon can enter this spiritual domain and wrest from its guardians true knowledge and power. Science without a moral foundation is lifeless. A scientist without ethics is not working for evolution. Powerful thinkers must also be ethical people.